Tell you, you hired me to win for America. I've got to make this decision now. This is the very best I can do, and I'm prepared to be held accountable. I'm going to tell you something. The way he handled this crisis and the way you saw him talk about it in the second and third debate showed that he will be a very, very fine decision maker working for the American people. The last thing I want to say is this. Here's the last thing I want to say. All over the world, I see this where I work now. The world is full of good, honest, smart, hardworking people with the best of intentions that cannot figure out how to turn their good ideas into real changes in other people's lives. If you have any doubt about Senator Obama's ability to be the chief executive, that's what the Constitution calls the president, just think about all of you. Look at this. Has there ever been a campaign that involved so many people, that made so much use of the internet, that thought about how to solve problems, that gave people so much opportunity to give money, to give their time, to express their opinions, to do things? He has executed this campaign in a way that is different from modern and forward-thinking, something no one else ever could have done. He can be the chief executor of good intentions as president. So, I want you to get on the phone. I want you to stop your neighbors on the street. I want you to get on the internet and say, if you hadn't made up your mind, you ought to vote for Barack Obama. He's got the best philosophy. He's got the best positions. He definitely has the decision-making ability, and he is a great executor. Folks, we can't fool with this. Our country is hanging in the balance, and we have so much promise and so much peril. This man should be our president. All of our presidents. And he's going to be our president unless the American people forget what the election's about. This election is about restoring the American dream and giving poor people their shot at it, and restoring America's standing as the world's leading nation for peace and prosperity. Diplomacy first, military force as a last resort. Bring the troops home from Iraq, be a force for peace, and get this economy going. That's what it's about. Once you define that, there's no question. Now, I want you to think about this as I bring him on. Tuesday, we will complete the presidential campaign. The presidential campaign is the greatest job interview in the world. And on Tuesday, you get to make the hire. If you're my age, you think about your children and the grandchildren you want to have. If you're young, you think about the future you want them to have. If you're young, you think about the children you want to bring into the world and what you want for them. There's not any real question here. This is not a close question. If you make the decision based on who can best get us out of the ditch, who's got the best philosophy, the best positions, the best ability, and the best judgment, I think it's clear. The next president of the United States should be, and with your help, will be Senator Barack Obama. Couldn't be better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. In case all of you forgot, this is what it's like to have a great president. It is such an honor and a privilege to be joined here tonight by a great president, a great statesman, a great supporter in our campaign to change America. Bill Clinton, give it up. Nobody makes the case for change that works for the middle class like President Bill Clinton. Nobody. And while I'm at it, I'd also want to say just a little something about Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton. Because I learned from her and President Clinton as a candidate. I am proud to call them my friends. I know how much we'll need both Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton in the months and years to come. Florida, I think you'll all agree with me that we all wish that the last 8 years looked a lot more like the Clinton years when he was in the White House. Now, before I move on, there are just a couple of other acknowledgments that I've got to make. First of all, one of the finest United States senators we have and one of the finest gentlemen that I know, not to mention he's an astronaut. I mean, it's cool being president, but being an astronaut, that's something else. So please give a big round of applause to your own Senator Bill Nelson and his wonderful wife, Grace Nelson. I haven't seen her, but I heard she was here, and I want to acknowledge her, your wonderful Congresswoman Corrine Brown. I want to thank State Representative Darren Soto, Olga Tanyon, Cheryl Grebe, and finally I want to say that before we came on, we had a chance to say hello to the most recent Democratic president, Jimmy Schmidt. Now, you know, when you listen to Bill Clinton, you are reminded of what it's like to have a president who is engaged, who's passionate, who's smart, who reaches out, who's inclusive instead of divisive, who has energy, who has vision. And you start getting kind of nostalgic about 22 million new jobs and a budget surplus and an economy that's working for everybody. And that's why we can't have 4 more years just like the last 8 that we've had. It's time for the kind of peace and prosperity that we saw in the 1990s. Now, I really just have 2 words for you tonight. 6 days. 6 days. After a decade of broken politics in Washington, after 8 years of failed policies by George W. Bush, after 21 months of a campaign that has taken us from the rocky shores of Maine to the sunshine of California, we are 6 days away from bringing about change in America. 6 days away. In 6 days, you can turn the page on policies that have put greed and irresponsibility on Wall Street before the hard work and sacrifice of the people on Main Street. In 6 days, you can choose policies that invest in our middle class and create new jobs and grow this economy from the bottom up, the way Bill Clinton was talking about, so that everyone has a chance to succeed, from the CEO to the secretary, from the factory owner to the people who are working on the factory floor. In 6 days, you can put an end to the politics that would divide this nation just to win an election, that tries to pit region against region, city against town, Republican against Democrat, that asks us to fear instead of hope. In 6 days, you can give this country the change we need. You know, we began this journey in the depths of winter 2 years ago on the steps of the old state capitol in Springfield, Illinois. And back then, we didn't have much money. We didn't have many endorsements. We weren't given much of a chance by the polls or the pundits. We knew that this would be a steep climb. But I also knew this. That's the same thing Bill Clinton understood when he ran as a little-known governor back in 1991. We both understood that there are times in our history where the size of our challenges outgrow the smallness of our politics. There are times where we have